guys! So we got a Dippilin evolution after all with Hydrapple. I was going to take a bit of a break from the apple dragons, but I kind of got carried away thinking of new forms this Pokemon could take for the different typings. This is going to be our last video in our Apple Dragon trilogy. No Applins or Dippilins, just the final evolutions. With that out of the way, let's see some new regional and convergent forms of Hydrapple for every type. Our first Hydrapple for today is this ground type convergent form. They're based on russet potatoes that are starting to sprout. This convergent Hydrapple can be found in areas with rich soil. Trainers are often puzzled when they first see this Pokemon, because one single head is usually just poking up out of the ground. They'll only emerge completely when needing to battle, using the remaining heads that are underground to dig themselves out. The poison-type regional form of Hydrapple looks like it's been out for too long and has started to rot. The primary head that is always showing mimics an apple's stem, while the remaining heads are like worms. Rather than having their eyes always showing on the outside, this Pokemon actually chews through the apple to peek its heads out. The heads can shoot out a highly corrosive acid when fighting, covering the area around it in battle to protect itself from most physical attacks. Next up is our Dark-type Hydrapple convergent form. Like our Poison-type Hydrapple, the main head people see resembles the stem of a pumpkin. There are 3 additional heads that usually hide inside, mimicking the eyes and nose of a jack-o'-lantern. These 3 are actually upside down inside of the pumpkin body. When they emerge, they end up facing the other way, covering the primary head's blind spots. If you've seen the Flapple of Every Type video already, you might be familiar with the concept for our Ice-type Hydrapple form. Like its Flapple cousin, this Pokemon's primary head is based on ice worms, which are a type of dark worm that can only be found in glacial ice in specific parts of the US and Canada. Over time, they've adapted to look like the snowman young trainers make. This Fire-type Hydrapple is here and there burning up. I feel bad for them honestly, because they always look miserable. Smoke comes out of the holes that the heads pop out of, which the Pokemon uses to hide itself in battle, making it a harder target to hit despite its pretty large size. It's said that the inside of the apple usually reaches 350 degrees Fahrenheit, or 175 degrees Celsius. This Hydrapple uses that heat to its advantage. For example, they can use a move like Solar Beam without needing to activate Sunny Day or wait an extra turn. For our Fairy-type convergent Hydrapple, we have this Pokemon inspired by sugar plums. The leaves coming out of the top are actually wings. Now these wings wouldn't be able to lift the Pokemon up on their own, but with its Fairy-type powers, this Pokemon is able to fly up off the ground. They can flap their wings and produce a magical sort of powder that allows them to more easily maneuver around. The 2 heads on the side are even said to hit opponents while the convergent form spins around in midair. Now we have our Flying type, which has to be the most different from the original Hydrapple. It's based on the stages of a dandelion, from the flower not ready to open to the fully matured white puffball. The center head's fluff allows the Pokemon to become airborne, picking up breezes similar to Jumpluff. Seeds apparently are held within the fluff, and the Pokemon has its own unique move called Dandasplosion, in which they shoot out the seeds from their center head at every Pokemon on the battlefield. The Electric-type Hydrapple is powered by Lemon Zest. The 2 side heads are wild and difficult to control, becoming too hyper from the lemon juice produced in its body and running through its veins. The heads will lash out wildly at anyone that dares to come near. The middle head is a lot more composed. Instead of using its body's energy constantly like the others, it stores the energy until needed, sending out massive waves of electric power from its mouth that can knock any opponent off their feet. Our Water-type conversion form has the body of a watermelon. This Pokemon is great with multi-strike moves like Bullet Seed. In fact, it even has its own unique Water-type move that's similar, called Seed Spit. This move acts like Bullet Seed, but if the opponent dodges any of the hits, the seeds will then grow into the ground and sprout. Their roots extend back to the Pokemon, helping it gain back a little bit of health every turn. The Fighting-type convergent form of Hydrapple is made to look like a pineapple, with the body being the fruit itself and the heads mimicking the sharp leaves. Since the outside of pineapples are sharp to ward off creatures that might want to eat it, and the inside contains the enzyme bromelain that attacks the protein on your tongue when eaten, I thought this fruit would be a decent choice for the Fighting type. This form lives in tropical regions near beaches. The bright yellow color of their body lures in Pokemon who are hungry. All 3 heads will remain out and will stay still to help with the disguise. When their prey gets close enough, the heads will lash out and attack. I struggled a bit coming up with an idea for our Psychic-type Hydrapple form. While doing research, I found that cherries and tart cherry juice are considered to be 2 of the best things to help get some shut-eye. Since so many Psychic-type Pokemon deal with the concept of sleep, I went with this cherry convergent form. A lot of people think of cherries as coming in pairs, and to play into that, the Pokemon is actually conjoined twins. This apparently can naturally occur in cherries pretty easily depending on the weather, and is called cherry doubling. They use their swirling eyes to hypnotize trainers and Pokemon into a slumber. Macadamia nuts were used as the inspiration for our rock-type convergent form of Hydrapple. These nuts are said to be the hardest to crack, with their durability making me think of rock-type Pokemon. The shell of a macadamia nut can split open like this, revealing some of the delicious food inside. These divides in the shell are where this Hydrapple form is able to poke its heads out. The Pokemon lives in mountains and cliffs. They try to take the high ground when in combat, then roll down the rocky slopes at incredible speeds towards their opponent. Since the Pokemon's body is so tough, it never worries about getting injured in the process. Our bug-type Appletun and Flapple were both inspired by gummy worms and dirt cups, so I had to continue that trend with this new Hydrapple form. Their heads have developed to be a bit more round than most variants of Hydrapple, helping them to better resemble smiling gummy worms. It's believed that this adaptation, as well as the ones making their heads so colorful in the first place, occurred to help the Pokemon look more friendly. This form of Hydrapple isn't normally found out in nature, but thrives in cities and suburbs around trainers instead, heavily relying on them for food. For the normal type, I gave this Pokemon a more classic Hydra look. It loses the food-based body and gains a new one that's more similar to Appletun's. The Pokemon's bulk helps it defensively when it needs to fight. Legend says that this Pokemon was the origin of all Hydrapple, and that if a Pokemon were to use a move like Cut or Fury Cutter against the heads, even more will grow back in response. The Steel-type Hydrapple is made to resemble the spiky durian fruit. Unlike the Hydrapple introduced in the Indigo Disk, all of the heads on this convergent form are able to tuck themselves into the body. They also each have a detail at the top of their heads, this time being smaller spikes to blend in with the others. Explorers have often found these Pokemon in areas where treasure is hidden, being used as spiky traps that could be fallen into, as well as for hidden traps where they roll down and try to pierce unwanted visitors. And our final Hydrapple form for today is our Ghost type. This regional form takes inspiration from real-life ghost apples. They occur when conditions get chilly enough for ice to form around an apple. When the fruit rots, it can leave behind a ghostly ice shell of its former self. The apple shell surrounding its body is said to be pretty fragile. While its defenses may not be the best, the Pokemon is a glass cannon. All of the heads can launch devastating attacks. Which of the Hydrapple regional and convergent forms was your favorite? Now that our Apple Dragon trilogy is complete, what other Pokemon do you want to see get a form for every type? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!